I'm glad that I started the webinar, even though we had to wait a little bit because otherwise the attendees wouldn't have been able to get in to be promoted.
Mhm. You're on mute, Catherine.
Okay. So we're here at the April 25, 2024 Board of Ethics meeting. We started about 11 minutes late, but we were waiting for a quorum, which we finally got, which is good. Um, and I'm just going to put on the share screen the agenda so everyone can see it. And this is for the meeting. And as you can see, we have to approve the March 28th, 2024 minutes. So let me put those up there real quick. I'll share my screen in a moment. I just have to get there. Okay, so as you can see, the minutes are up here for everyone to take a look at. They're only 2 pages. Take a look at it. Let me know when you are finished. Let me know if there's any changes that need to be made. And I'll be back in a moment. Just need to charge my computer. If anyone needs me to move down on the page, let me know.
Yes, please.
Yes.
Let me know when everyone's done.
Yep, done.
Okay. Does anyone have any changes to make? Just for the record, I changed associate to assistant corporate counsel. And it'll be corporation counsel. So that's the only changes that I saw.
No. No.
Okay. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes with those two amendments, assistant corporation counsel?
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay, and can everyone please vote? If there's anyone who does not approve, please say so now. And for everyone that approves, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, so those minutes have been approved. Those are final. Okay. When we were here last, we had gone through 32.9 and 32.13, and we were in the process of discussing 32.4 when we lost Catherine. So we didn't have the opportunity to vote on the proposed changes to 32.4, excuse me, conflicts of interest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that back up on the screen right now, 32.4, and all the changes are highlighted in yellow, as you can see. And so if everyone can tell me, just, take a look. And when everyone's done with the first page, let me know. Go to the second page. So everyone just get a chance to take a look at it one more time. And then we can vote on that and move on to, 3212.
Okay.
Is everyone good on the first page? Okay, you want to go to the second page? Let me know when everyone's done.
I'm good.
Yeah,
Okay.
done.
All right, let's go to the third page. Not too many page changes on the third page.
Okay.
Looks good.
Okay. So does anyone have any further, do we have to just make any more discussion about any more amendments, revisions, or changes to the PowerPoint on slide on 32.4? And if not, would someone like to move to approve the changes that are highlighted in yellow, both additions and revisions? Would someone like to approve that? Or
I'll move to approve that.
All right. And would someone like to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay. So now we have a motion and a second. Can everyone vote on their approval of the proposed changes to PowerPoint slide 32.4, which are highlighted in yellow? If everyone could vote yes, if you agree, and if not, please keep your hand down.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Catherine raised her hand on the video. She is on mute because it looks like she's driving. So that's everyone. Yep. So she's nodding her head. Everyone approved that one. Okay. So before we get on 32.12, what I'm going to do is, it sounds like we're going to be able to get through all, hopefully we'll be able to get through all. The 32.12 is the last one. We get through all of them tonight. And after I make those changes, I'm going to send out an email with the final PowerPoint slides for each of the sections for everyone to look at over the next month. And then at our next meeting, we could probably discuss how everyone wants to divvy up or divide up the videos that we're going to try and start making if we're successful in getting through this. So in just a moment, I will put 32.12 up there. Okay, bear with me. I gotta find it first. Here it is. All right, so 32.12 is the ethics complaint procedures. Does anyone have any proposed changes or amendments to this first page, which is basically just letting everyone know where we're going with this?
No.
Okay. So we'll go to the second one, and this starts out with powers and duties. And you can see basically a bullet point brief summary of all of the things that that the Board of Ethics does. So everyone take a look at these powers and duties of the Board of Ethics, and then let me know if anyone has any recommended changes or anything like that before we go on to the next slide.
This is good as an overview.
Just an overview, correct. All right, so if everyone's okay, we'll go to the third slide. Okay. So this is the membership and organization, and this just, again, pretty straightforward, talks about how there's 5 full-time members and 2 alternates. They have to be electors of the city. There's a certain amount of members of the Board of Ethics can only be from one political party that satisfies the minority representation rule in the Connecticut General Statutes, which is required. None of the members can be an employee or officer of the city. They're 3-year terms. And then obviously it talks about how you're appointed. You guys, each of you required a supermajority, which is, I believe, the only board or commission which is required for a supermajority. And I think it tells you what people think about the Board of Ethics, that you need to be sure about somebody sitting on this. So again, congratulations and thank you. And it also talks about the replacement. Does anyone have any issues, concerns, revisions, recommendations for this third slide concerning 3212?
Seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're good.
Again, if I'm getting too far ahead, just raise your hand or make some noise, because sometimes I'm muting it down to one slide because we're sharing the screen.
No,
Page 4 continues to talk about membership and organization. There has to be a chairperson. We should probably change that to chairperson. Is everyone okay with that change?
Yes.
yes,
Good one.
Okay. Somebody just change that to chairperson, and we'll strike that. And I'm just going to put a space here so that it doesn't continually show that, and that will be highlighted in yellow for everyone to see. Minutes of meetings to be maintained and filed with the city clerk. That means that we have a physical copy in the law department, and we also have a digital copy of the minutes which go onto the city website. One full member of the board can request a meeting, but a majority of the full members shall determine the date and time of the meeting. Again, we need a quorum, as everyone is well aware of. And alternate members have all the powers and duties of full members at any meeting. As I've told many of you in conversations who may or may not be alternates, I don't consider there to be any alternates on here. I understand they're in name only as far as I'm concerned. Everyone's a full member here as far as I'm concerned. Does anyone have any other questions or changes, revisions besides changing chairman to chairperson?
So just for clarification, what you're saying is that if all 7 members are available, they can all attend
Absolutely.
and vote and all of that. Okay,
Absolutely.
that's
Yep.
good.
Yep. No, I know it, Pat. I know I've had this conversation with you. This is as far as I'm concerned, we have 7 members, full members, alternates. They don't exist in my view. All right, so we're on to number 5, which is advisory opinions. This is one of the things that we do for both officers or employees, or even an agency. If an agency is asking for that, we render advisory opinions. They're binding until they're amended or revoked. There has to be good faith compliance, good faith reliance, excuse me, on an advisory opinion is an absolute defense. That's why we want people to ask for these, because if they don't ask for our opinion and they do something and they're wrong, they could expose themselves to an ethics complaint. Whereas if they come to us in good faith and ask for our opinion and we provide an opinion and they follow it, that will defend them, and it gives them a clear path to not worry about their actions after that. And that's another reason why we want to promote people to do that. Advisory opinions are rendered within 120 days, and they're also available to the public. Typically, if we do get one, I try to reach out immediately to let everyone know that an advisory opinion has been requested. And also we'll let you try to give you an idea as to when I'll be able to analyze it. And then we'll provide you with my analysis so that everyone can provide their thoughts. Does anyone have any comments, revisions, or questions or amendments to page 5 of this PowerPoint slide?
I'm just thinking, that whatever the opinion of the ethics board, it doesn't have to be followed. My understanding is that it's an advisory
Yes.
opinion, and the powers outside of this board are free to not follow what the recommendations are. And-
Correct. We
Okay. Yeah.
provide guidance,
Right.
and then if an ethics complaint is filed, then then the board serves as the investigators and then essentially the triers of fact. So, and if you ask for an opinion and we provide one, again, it's an absolute defense as long as there's good faith reliance on our opinion. So,
Right.
again, further incentive to try and follow what the board comes up with, because we're the ones that think about this code of ethics more than everyday people that might not be on this board.
Yes.
Any other issues with this before we move on?
Mm-mm.
I don't
Okay.
think so.
Page 6, and now we're getting into the more of the nitty gritty here. This is the complaint procedure. I'll go through it all and then everyone can comment or whatever. The complaint, that's the complaint, the person who files the complaint, it must be confidential. It must be in writing on the required complaint form, which can be found on the Citizen's Guide to the Code of Ethics. It's at the back. It must be signed under a penalty of false statement, meaning it has to be truthful. It has to contain details of the specific acts or acts allegedly in violation of the code. It has to be in good faith. It cannot be intended to harass somebody or be vexatious, meaning without merit. And it must be timely. And in 3414, it tells 3414, which we've already gone over, it talks about the time period within which you must file one of these complaints. Otherwise, it is deemed untimely and will not be considered by the board. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, comments, or revisions about page 6 of this PowerPoint slide?
No,
I don't think so.
it's a good slide.
All right, so now the person who did this, who's no longer on the board, Attorney Cara Murphy, she then put together a really nice flow chart. You'll see a couple flow charts in here. So I'll just go through the complaint process. And as you can see on the left side, it says confidential, and then public. So most of this is confidential, this process. Confidential complaint is filed with the city clerk. City clerk refers the confidential complaint to the staff and the Board of Ethics. Board of Ethics reviews the complaint to ensure compliance with the Code of Ethics in consultation with staff. If complaint complies with the code, if the complaint complies with the code, complaint is referred to an investigating panel, which will be 3 members of this board. The 3 members of the board cannot be of the same political party, meaning it could be a Republican, a Democrat, and an independent. It can't be 2 Democrats and a Republican, but it can be 2 independents. It cannot be the same political party. If a complaint is not filed, if a complaint is not compliant, the board can request compliance or dismiss it. And in that regard, we provide the information to the complainant saying this is why you are lacking in your complaint. And here is, get it back, do it again based on our letter, or we can just outright dismiss it. Again, it's kind of factual situation as to how you determine that.
And that's just at our discretion?
Your discretion, yes.
Okay.
Yep. And again, that's the entire board before we get to the investigating panel.
Okay.
The investigating, so this is the second part of this, which is still confidential, is the investigating panel. 3-member investigating panel assembles and begins the investigation. The person making the complaint is the complainant, and the person against whom the complaint is made is the respondent. Respondent is notified of the complaint. That is something that staff does. I will notify, or somebody else from my office will notify the respondent. If the investigating panel finds no probable cause, the complaint is dismissed. A notice of dismissal is sent to the complainant and the respondent bear with me 1 second, and the file is closed. If the investigating panel finds probable cause, a written report is sent to the complainant and respondent, and a hearing board is formed, which would be another group of 3 from this committee.
Mhm.
And again, that hearing board must be comprised of, cannot be comprised of more than one person from the same political party. So again, we can't have 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans on either an investigating panel or a hearing board.
And it has to be different than the
Yes.
hearing board has to be different people than the investigating board, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Because the investigating panel would be the one that would be, if you want to call it, for lack of a better word, the prosecutor
Yep.
in the hearing board situation.
Okay.
That being said, if whether probable cause is found or not, there has to be a written report filed. How detailed it is, I guess, depends on the facts of the case. And that is sent to both the complainant and respondent. Now, this is where the change occurs. If probable cause is found, everything becomes public. If probable
Mhm.
cause is found by the investigating panel, a 3-member hearing board is formed. Public hearing or hearings, depending on how complicated this is, are held, because again, everyone here is volunteer. Hearing boards issue a written memorandum of decision. If an ethics violation is found, a determination of the violation is issued in writing and the matter is referred for further action. If an ethics violation is not found, the case is dismissed. Referred for further action could be whether somebody is a letter of reprimand in their file, or suspension, or termination if it's bad enough, or for an appointed or elected official, potentially sanction, removal, things of that nature. Does anyone have any questions about flowchart page number, the flowchart, which is page number 7, the first flowchart?
I have one question. Do you participate in addition to the 3-member investigating panel?
So what happens
Okay.
is I am not a member of the investigating panel or the hearing board. However, I am legal counsel, staff.
Right.
I'm still staff. I can answer legal questions if there's procedural questions or potentially a legal question that might pop up, unless I have to recuse myself, i.e., I potentially might have a conflict of interest because I lived in Norwalk for 10 years, so I know a lot of people, and I also work with a lot of people. So there could be a situation where it might make more sense for either somebody else from my office to act as staff, or we have to go out and retain outside counsel to act as staff in that situation.
Okay.
But yes, in most
I just wanted to
situations, I would
clarify.
act as staff. And
So, and also, who was responsible for writing the report and responding to the complainant and respondent?
you mean in terms of the investigating panel?
Yes, I
That
mean,
would be the group of 3 investigating panel would draft something with, and I could assist in what you
okay,
need to put in there. What's the minimum amount you would have to put in there?
okay.
Because you've already made your decision. I'm not impacting the decision. I'm just providing,
I just,
answering your questions.
you know, who puts the stamp on the letter? Kind of, it just, that's just
in that
curious as to
situation-
who's responsible for that. Is it the?
Yeah, in that situation, it would be the 3-member investigating panel, and it would have to be signed and dated by all members of the investigating panel.
Okay,
And just so we're clear, the investigating panel throughout the process can request documents, can request to speak to people who are involved in this situation, just so you're aware.
okay.
Should we, any proposed changes to this page 7?
Just clarifying.
Yep.
Nope.
Any
that's a
other
good document.
comments? Oh, okay. We have another flow chart on page 8. I'll read it to you because I don't know how well anyone can see it, especially since Catherine is driving, or she's in her car. Ethics complaint process. Confidential complaint is filed with the city clerk, Board of Ethics notified by the city clerk. Board of Ethics reviews the complaint for compliance with the code. Complaint not compliant with the code, Board of Ethics requests compliance and or dismisses the complaint. You can see that goes off to the left if you're facing the screen. Off to the right, complaint compliant with code, complainant referred to investigating panel for confidential investigation. Again, we're highlighting the fact that the investigating panel's investigation is confidential because there's been no findings, and we don't want the respondent to have any public anything public about them until a finding has been made. And then you come down from there. Investigating panel formed and investigates, and respondent is notified. And then from there, there's two options. No probable cause found, parties notified, complaint dismissed with a written report. And if you go the other way, probable cause found, referred to hearing panel. And then as you can see, that flow chart goes down, hearing panel formed, public hearings are held. And then there's two choices: ethics violation found, case referred for action under 3213, which I'll go over with you in a section, or no ethics violation found, case dismissed. So I'm going to go to 3213 real quick. I'm going to go off here just in a moment and tell you what 3213 says in our city code. Just so you're aware, because I haven't looked at this in a while. Okay, so 3213 says, and I'm going to put it up here on the board, so just bear with me 1 second. Put up here so everyone can see it as I'm going through it with you. Hopefully this is correct. Here it is. If there's a violation by an elected official, may be considered for dereliction of official duty and therefore cause for censure, impeachment, or removal. By an officer appointed, it could be for censure or removal. So they differentiate between an elected official, an appointed official, or an employee. Could be a demotion in rank or grade, which is effectively a pay decrease, termination of contract, or discharge under the code, and any applicable labor agreement. Any individual is found in violation of this chapter can be subject to a civil action to recover damages, and that's because, for example, if there's something going on and there's a contract given and it was found to be in violation of the code, then the contract could be rescinded, and then the city could, suffer damages because of that. Any officer or employee who is determined to have violated the provisions shall have a copy of said decision placed in their official personnel file. It'll be determined by general principles of law. That's why you have legal guidance, whether it be staff from the corporation counsel's office or outside counsel. There could be a fine of up to $250 per violation. Again, it doesn't have to be one violation. This could be numerous things, or it could be one thing. And where there's been a violation, the city may void, again, what I was telling you before, they can void a municipal purchase or contract. And so that, again, could have a negative effect on the city, which is where potential damages could come in. So I just wanted to go through that with you in a little bit more detail. I wanted to show you specifically what I was talking about earlier. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, or comments about this flow chart? It basically mirrors what we just talked about on page 7. Again, this is page 8 with this green flow chart.
Yes, I'm just wondering, like, is it repetitive enough that we need both of them? What was unless there was a specific reason that we did this that they did this as well.
My understanding was that these two flow charts are both in the Citizens Guide, and they thought that it would make sense to put them both in here. That's the reason.
Okay.
That I can recall. I think this was done like a year and a half ago.
Right.
And these were done by Cara?
Attorney Cara Murphy.
Cara
Correct.
Murphy, yeah.
Yep.
I mean, and quite frankly, I think they're very well done.
They were.
It's very complicated.
It is. That's why we gave it to her.
And there's no way, there's no way to memorize it or anything like that, but I think it's a really good reference.
Yeah.
In a very complicated process. I know Cara.
Yeah.
And I can almost hear her writing this.
That's why we gave this one to her.
Good job, Cara.
Yeah, it was not, it took a while.
Yeah, I'm sure.
A lot of work, because it's 19 slides here, which is, I think the one we had the most of was like 3.
Mhm.
All right. So again, a lot of this is repetitive, but hypothetically, if somebody goes through this process, whether it be you as the board being a part of the investigating panel, or hopefully never a hearing board, because we never want to get that far, because that would mean something bad has happened, or whether it's the complainant or respondent, I think it is helpful to go through this. Again, this PowerPoint slide, when it's done, somebody could be reading through these later PowerPoint slides and leave up the two flow charts so people can see them if that's how it's done easier. This is
Mhm.
again, we're tracking this section, but I'll read through it again. And this is what it says. First step, the ethics board reviews the complaint. Again, this might be a little bit more detail, but again, this is pretty complex stuff as we've been talking about. Board of Ethics reviews the complaint to determine whether it should be accepted. If the board, and again, that's with the assistance of staff. If the board rejects the complaint, it must do so in writing and it must explain why, i.e., you didn't provide your name, meaning you can't accept an anonymous ethics complaint, or it could be you published it, you made it public, and therefore you violated confidentiality, or you just don't have enough information, or you don't cite to a specific section of the code. Just some examples. If the board rejects the complaint, it must do so in writing. Reasons to reject the complaint. Again, I got ahead of myself. Including but not limited to number of complaints filed and pending by complainant, meaning a vexatious filer who might be filing too many or trying to harass somebody or numerous people. The scope of the complaint, meaning not enough or maybe it's all over the place. The nature, content, language, and or subject matter of the complaint. Is it relevant to our statutes, or is it something that has nothing to do or nothing within the purview of the Board of Ethics, like a criminal, a criminal complaint? The nature, content, language, or subject matter of other written communications to the board. A pattern of conduct resulting in an abusive process or interference with the board. Again, that goes to the vexatious filer. Does anyone have any comments or questions about this particular slide?
No.
Okay.
No.
So, and again, these later slides from 9 on, I think a lot of it gives a little bit more information about generally what we were talking about in the earlier slides. So this is page 10, which is rejection of the complaint. A complaint must be made in good faith. It must be truthful, and it must not be intended to harass the respondent, whether that be an employee, an appointed or elected officer, or somebody who's been contracted with by the city to do work. If a complaint is found to be in bad faith, untruthful, or vexatious, the board may provide appropriate relief commensurate with the conduct. Order that the Board of Ethics need not accept complaints from the complainant for a designated period of time. Again, you cannot say we're never going to hear another complaint from you again, but you can say, based on the conduct, we're not going to accept another complaint for you for a period of a few months or a year or something along those lines. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, or comments about page number 10?
Seems clear.
Okay. Let's see, move these up so we can get on to number 11. Okay, second step is the investigating panel. Upon receipt of the complaint, Board of Ethics meets at next regularly scheduled meeting. Board reviews the complaint. If the complaint is accepted, the investigating panel is appointed within 21 days. Complainant and respondent notified within 10 days after the investigating panel is formed. I can tell you that, just for a little background, this section was edited significantly because there was not enough time in between when a complaint was filed. I mean, if a complaint was filed the day after we had our meeting, sometimes we don't have meetings for multiple months. And so it has to be at the next meeting. Obviously, we would want to try and get a meeting as soon as possible because these things are serious and you don't want them hanging over somebody's head or either the person filing it or the person being accused for longer than we have to. But again, we also realize that the Board of Ethics is a volunteer group, so that we needed to change the timeline so that it was realistic. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, or revisions about page 11 of this slideshow?
No.
Okay. All right. Slide page number 12, investigating panel confidentiality. Again, we're just highlighting want to make it clear to everyone this is confidential. Investigating panel proceedings are confidential. That means requests for documents, interviews, things of that nature. Breach of confidentiality can be direct or indirect, meaning I can say it as the complainant, or I can tell somebody else. Again, it's harder when you tell somebody else, but breach of confidentiality may result in dismissal of a complaint. Board of Ethics may ban complainant from filing future complaints due to breach of confidentiality. And again, the reason for that is that This is supposed to be serious. And if you're serious about filing a complaint, then you should follow the rules. And it's important that the person who's been complained against has due process before all this is made public. Does anyone have any comments, concerns, revisions about page 12 of this slideshow?
Well, I'm just curious as to, this is supposed to be confidential, yet it's being discussed at the regular meeting, which is now
So-
on Zoom and available to everybody?
So that's a good point. Let me go back to that. Where was that? Maybe it was on this one. Here it is. So that's a good point, Pat. And that would be something, it would have to be discussed in executive session. So perhaps we should add that in. If a complaint is accepted, okay. Next session meeting. Maybe we should add one, and let me know if everyone agrees with this. The discussion will take place in executive session. And it would take place in executive session, and thank you for reminding me of that. Does anyone have any other changes to page 11? We just went back to add that section. Okay,
No.
let's go back to the one we were talking about, which is page 12. Does anyone have any questions, comments, revisions?
I do. So you're saying in this discussion, you're talking about the confidentiality of the complaint, right?
It's the confidentiality of the complaint itself.
Okay.
The complainant is going to make the complaint directly to the city clerk, who then sends it to us. The complainant cannot publicize this by talking about it or by social media or the paper or blogs, whatever. They can't publicize it until it's not going to be, it should not and will not become public. It would be subject to dismissal at that point. And if a complainant were to make it public, not only could you dismiss it, but you could also prevent them from filing future complaints, meaning if you file one, we're not going to consider it in the future because you're not listening to the rules.
Okay.
And we're talking about people's reputations here, which is why everyone should.
I was just thinking, because it's talking about the investigating panel, which is technically the board, but you're talking, and then it moves to talking about the complainant needs to not talk about it. So it seems like we're mixing groups of people that shouldn't be talking about it, and it makes it a little bit confusing.
Sure, let me go back here.
You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
I mean, the investigating panel is a 3-member panel,
Yes.
yet we would be discussing it as part of a regular meeting.
Well, no, the investigating, hold on. Let me just go back over here real quick. Rejection of the complaint. That's the rejection of the complaint. Confidentiality. Investigating panel proceedings are confidential. I know we talked about this before, that you can't talk about this, and then it's up here. The complaint must be confidential. There it is.
Yeah.
It's right up here.
Right. Okay.
Now, Pat, what were you saying? You raised a good point. So
The investigating panel is a 3-member panel,
correct.
and yet on the page that starts second step, number 11, it says that the Board of Ethics meets at the next regular scheduled meeting, and then you added this about executive session, but
Board of Ethics meeting the next regular scheduled meeting.
But we wouldn't be discussing it as part of the regular meeting?
No, so here,
Because we're going to appoint the investigative panel then.
we have to change that.
Okay.
So you're going to determine whether if it's going to be accepted, and then once you accept it, the Board of Ethics meets the next regular scheduled meeting to discuss the appointment
Well,
of
we have to review the complaint first, is what we're doing, right?
to
The whole board does that.
right. So we're going to do that. So we're going to move this down. The discussion of the complaint and whether it will be accepted or rejected.
Right.
There you go. Thank you for that addition. Thank you for everyone catching that.
Okay.
And so then take out the fourth bullet
Yeah, the
down.
board reviews
have
the
it in
complaint. Yeah.
place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if so, hold on, we've got to add this too. I got to make sure this is clear because we don't want it to be the discussion of the complaint and whether it will be accepted or rejected will take place in executive session. The discussion of the appointment of investigating panel will take place in executive session. All right. If the complaint is accepted, the investigating panel is appointed within 21 days. And so what you want to do is, since we're going to discuss it at our next meeting, whenever that meeting is in executive session, we're going to appoint them at that meeting because that gives us the 21 days. And then from that time period, we then have 10 days to notify everyone once the investigating panel has been formed, and we notify them who's on the investigating panel so that they can expect to hear from said investigating panel. So thank you.
And
But
then
Any
then
other
the panel meets outside of our regular meetings.
Yes.
Correct.
Right.
Yes. That was the next part that I wanted to get to because Pat was raising another good point, which you then raised, Michelle, which is once the investigating panel is formed, these are not regularly scheduled meetings because we don't have a quorum in that situation. And so we have to we have to have these outside of meetings. These are conducted on, unfortunately, your own personal time. And just so you know, there can be conflicts. Obviously, if one of you knows somebody that could affect your ability to be a part of this, that's why we have 7 people. Anyway, so if somebody were to know somebody, either the complainant or respondent, you thought it would affect your ability to be fair and impartial, you would just advise staff, and then we would have to go with the other 6. All right. So now back on to 12. Investigating panel proceedings are confidential. Breach of confidentiality can be direct or indirect, can result in dismissal of the complaint, and they can ban the person from filing in the future. Again, this is the process once the investigating panel has been formed and they're conducting requests for written documents. I want to see the documents that you cited to or any other documents that support your claim or your defenses. And you might want to speak to the people, witnesses, people who might be in the know. Any questions or concerns, comments about page 12 here of this slideshow?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so now we're up to the process, the investigating panel process, which is page 13. Again, I'll read it. Everyone get a chance to digest it, and we'll talk about it. Investigating panel process. Investigating panel determines whether there's probable cause that the respondent has violated the code. And again, when they make a complaint, they have to cite to the specific code sections in the Code of Ethics that they believe they violated, and then the factual predicate to prove that. Investigating panel may delete, defer, reject, or expand any part of the complaint. Meaning, hey, we want more information about what you're saying here. Can you provide it? And or you know, this is ridiculous. We're not going to deal with this. We're going to ignore that and go on to the other things. You know, let's say they asserted 3 different code violations, 32, 4, 9, and 13, or whatever the numbers are. And you thought that 2 of the sections weren't worthy of your time because there was no evidence to back it up. You can just delete them by ignoring them and go forward with the one that you believe you have to look at because that there might be some claim to some support of that. Investigating panel may receive oral or written testimony from complainant, respondent, and witnesses, and witnesses may retain legal counsel and investigators. Meaning, if a person has a complaint filed against them, they have the right to retain legal counsel. And to retain investigators to defend their good name at their cost, unless the common counsel decides after the fact that they're going to pay for it, or either all of it or part of it, which is in a different section. It's not in this section. The investigating panel must complete their investigation and decide initial complaint within 60 days. So again, once an investigating panel has been formed, it has to be done, 60 days will be here before you know it. It gives you time to speak to people. Everyone's schedules are different, and then also to write the report. Does anyone have any questions, comments, or concerns about page 13?
I don't think so.
Okay. Next, page 14 is decision by investigating panel. Again, I'll read it and then everyone can comment if they have any comments. 2 outcomes. No probable cause means dismissal of the complaint. Probable cause means referral to the hearing board. Finding of no probable cause. Complaint is dismissed. Board of Ethics notified of dismissal with a copy of dismissal sent to the respondent and the complainant, meaning the investigating panel sends one to the other 4 members saying, don't worry about it. It's been dismissed. Finding a probable cause requires 2 affirmative votes because the investigating panel has 3 people. So it must be a majority vote. If it's 1-1 and there's no decision on the third, or they abstain, or if they try to abstain, it must be a majority rule. Written report to the board. And again, that also goes with finding of no probable cause. It must be a majority decision. Finding a probable cause, 2 affirmative votes required. Written report to Board of Ethics stating the basis of the findings. Board of Ethics appoints a hearing board within 45 days of the written report. Any comments, questions, or concerns about that? Okay. Third step, which is page 15, is the hearing board. Investigating panel presents all evidence to the hearing board. Again, they're like the de facto prosecutor in a criminal action. Hearing board notifies respondent and complainant within 10 days of receipt of report by investigating panel of the hearing process. All hearings are public and are not confidential. Public has a right to access the hearings. If there was a hearing board hearing, if there was a meeting of a public hearing of a hearing board, myself or staff from the Corporation Counsel's office, if we've not recused ourselves, would sit down kind of as your de facto counsel to answer any legal questions that might go in front of the hearing board at that time. Again, the investigating panel would be putting on the evidence to the hearing board while the respondent would be defending themselves in that situation. Okay? Any questions or concerns about this? Okay. Page 16, the public hearing process. The investigating panel presents the complaint to the hearing board on behalf of the complainant. So the complainant would most likely testify, but they would not be the person bringing this before you. It would be the investigating panel, as I said. The investigating panel and respondents' rights to be represented by counsel, to present relevant oral or written evidence, to exam or cross-examine witnesses, and to have the hearing conducted in such a manner as to afford both parties due process under federal, state, and local law. Subpoenas may be issued by hearing board for both witnesses and records/documents. Does anyone have any questions, concerns about that? Again, our office can assist with subpoenas if necessary, if it were to get this far. Okay. Looks like we have another page about the public hearing process here. So page 17. All right, page 17, evidence and burden of proof. A violation of the code must be proven by clear and convincing evidence. So for all the non-lawyers, in a civil action, it's by a preponderance of the evidence, meaning 51% or more, meaning I just have to tilt the scales of justice ever so slightly in my side. So clear and convincing evidence is not proof beyond a reasonable doubt, but it's significant. It's kind of in between a criminal and a civil trial. An investigating panel has the burden of proving the complaint. The respondent has no burden of proof. A 2/3 vote of the hearing panel is required to make a finding of the violation. Much like the investigating panel, a majority rule, it's the same thing for the hearing board. Extensions of time within the discretion of the hearing board, meaning if somebody needs more time before a public hearing on this, they would have to make a written request to the hearing board, and the hearing board may grant the extension. They don't have to. It's not shall, it's may. It's your discretion. Any questions here on page 17? Okay.
No.
18, decision of the hearing board. Again, I'll read it and then everyone can digest it and make any comments. The decision of the hearing board must be rendered within 120 days of appointment. So again, We have a time crunch on when this is all done. Within 30 days after rendering a decision, the hearing board must state its findings of fact and conclusions of law in a written memorandum of decision. The memorandum of decision is filed with the mayor, the city clerk, and the corporation counsel's office. May be filed with any officer any other officer as appropriate, provided to the complainant and respondent. Penalties for violation of the ethics code are set forth in 3213, which we've already gone over. Much like with the investigating panel, whether there's a finding of probable cause or not, with the hearing board, if there's a finding of fault or not, in either situation, there should be a written report explaining the decision. And you can work with staff, whether that's outside staff or our office, because you rendered the decision. We can just assist you in what you need to put in there and answer any questions you might have. Any questions about page 18? Okay. 19, the last page, miscellaneous provisions. Stipulations of parties and settlement. The respondent may enter into a settlement with the Board of Ethics, investigating panel, or the hearing board at any time. And then educational programs. The board shall hold or sponsor at least one educational program annually. The Board of Ethics has a citizen's guide available to the public and other interested parties. And just for anybody who might be listening, before we talk about this, the Citizen's Guide to the Code of Ethics, along with the Code of Ethics, can be found on the board's website, which is on the City of Norwalk website. On that individual website, it lists all the members of the board, and at the bottom, it has a web link to both the code and the Citizen's Guide. Just again, for anybody listening, what we're discussing here, these PowerPoint slides will be used to create YouTube videos, short videos of each of the sections to provide educational programming for residents of the city, employees and officers appointed or elected of the city, so they can better understand the Code of Ethics. And so those are the 19 slides. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, comments, or revisions about page 19?
I have a
Okay.
general question.
Yes.
Is there an appeals process of any kind to this process? Or is the decision of the board just final?
That's a good question. I believe, if I recall correctly, I might have been asked this question a long time ago when we were going through the revisions. And I believe that a respondent has a right to appeal to the Superior Court. But again, if I believe, I don't know the answer to that.
I was just generally curious. It wasn't.
I believe the respondent has a right to appeal to the Superior Court, which is our lowest level trial courts, which is if you were to file a civil action for personal injury or a contract dispute, that is where you would go.
Okay.
I believe that's the answer, but I would have to get back to you on that.
It's not
Okay.
that critical.
I know we made minor changes to this 19-page PowerPoint slide about section 3212, which is the last section we have to discuss before we start the videos. Does anyone have any further comments, revisions, or additions, revisions to be made to this, or are you ready to vote on those this newly revised proposed 3212 slideshow?
I think those changes are
Ready to
good.
vote?
Okay, does someone want to move to approve the 19-page 3212 slideshow with the additions and revisions that we made that are highlighted in yellow?
I will move to approve the 3212? Sorry.
3212, yes.
3212 revisions and changes.
Can somebody second that before we vote?
And I second that motion.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. And now that we have a motion and a second, can we now have a vote from the 4 members of the Board of Ethics that are here as to whether they formally approve the changes to 3212? You've already approved the changes to 32.4 as we discussed.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and Catherine, if you could just raise your hand. If you approve it, raise your hand. Okay, Catherine raises her hand, so she approves it as well, so it's unanimous. We have those changes done. Let me just see if there's any, if we have any participants here. No, we just have the panelists. Okay. I thought maybe someone joined. So now we've gone through the process of finalizing these slides. I'm gonna finalize these afterwards, removing the yellow and make with those changes that we've approved tonight. I'm going to send out an email to everyone on the board with all of the final versions of all of these PowerPoint slides, so that everyone has them. And then if everyone can perhaps get an idea, perhaps put together a wish list of the ones perhaps you want to work on or the ones you want to avoid. Maybe you feel more confident or strongly about a specific section because you've had experience with it, or maybe you've worked with on a board similar to this before. But if everyone can get back to me as to which ones they'd like to do, and we'll figure out going forward as to, I'll try to work with IT to figure out how we can do this. Maybe they can provide me with some guidance. Maybe they can assist either by helping us directly or by saying, this is the process by which you can do that. Because I've never made a YouTube video before.
Me neither.
So it'll be a learning process, I guess, for me. Does anyone have any comments, questions, or concerns? I know we've been here about it. Some of us have been here about an hour. Does anyone have any final comments, questions, or concerns before I ask for a motion to adjourn? Okay. Does somebody want to move to adjourn the meeting? And then we need a second.
I move to adjourn the meeting.
Okay, somebody second.
I second, Catherine second.
Okay, can everyone vote?
Agreed.
All right, it's unanimous.
Agreed.
Again, thank you to everyone who showed up to assist in finally finishing these PowerPoint slides. I will get them out to everybody, and then we can work
job,
on
ladies.
trying to get these YouTube videos done. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Have a good
Thanks,
night,
Brian.
everyone.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe.
Thank
Stay
you.
safe,
Good
everybody.
night.
Motion of moving and everything. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. I
Okay.
appreciate you
Thank
coming on. I know you were
you.
busy.
You were here.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
Brian.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.